Hello everyone, this is James, and today we're talking about the inheritance of the object in JavaScript. Talking about the inheritance, we know that it's just like we first define an object, then we just get all the method or all the properties from that one, and then we can also at the same time to have its own method, override the old method, etc. So that's I think in other languages also have the similar concept. And in JavaScript, of course, if we use there are different ways to do that. And if we just use the JavaScript class equals to the compilation of a constructor and the method in the prototype, for instance, in this case, it's fruit prototype methods, the closed ones. So with this, I mean, if we create an instance of this class, and then it will automatically have this color and this size, and also it will have its by fruits. How about we just create an apple? So we just want to use the apple to extend the fruits, to extend the class. In JavaScript, the practice is like this. Use class and then the keyword extend, I mean the parent's name, and then we can also create constructors and its own method. But there's some tricky things here. If we just comment everything here, we just focus on this one, create an instance by new. Can we successfully create everything just by using the uncommented codes? Let's just give it a try. Actually, the result will get out a error. It said that must call the super constructor in direct classes before accessing this. So it means the first thing I just read here, this does not automatically create by using, so we use something like super. So super is right, comes to create this. So if we first define super and below super, then this can be used. And what will the list point at? Of course, if we create a new instance, the list creating starting from here will all point at Apple 1 instance. So let's just try again to see if there's an error or not. Okay, everything is right? We create something like Apple 1 here. And also, that's the first thing we have to say. And the second thing is, here we just pass a round here, of course, as a parameters in the constructors when creating the instance. And then can it be reflected in? Just print it to see if it really works or not. If it works, I think the expected value should be round because we just print the instance and then the property. Okay, it's correct. So actually what we have done here is correct. Then have it inherited what we want, all the things like color, size, and these by fruits functions. So we have this one and this one, just uncomment. Okay, let's check. Round, correct. And then why we have undefined? Actually, undefined came from the color because here we didn't really define, even it has property, we didn't give its initial values. So how come that it has a value, right? So in order to do that, here I just create something. So the red is the only parameters will pass to the colors, right? In order, right? If we give it 2, the other one will give it to size. So we just give 1 red, 2 color. Let's see what will happen now. Okay, when we do something like this, actually it has a value. We have a comparison here. It has the red value already, so that's really correct. And then by fruits. Why it has by fruits here? Because we really console of by fruits. And the last undefined actually is also from here because we didn't return any values here. So it will automatically return a undefined. I think that's the first part. And I will just know that the super. This one is so important if we really want to make the list work. If there's no super, this will not be initiated. And part two is that actually the class is a keyword introduced in the ES5, but prior to ES5, if we want to do something similar, how can we do it? It will goes to the part two. I just if we also want to have the inheritance here, we cannot do something like this. What we can do here, because there's no class, right? So first, I think we just comment everything until it's something like use only the constructor functions. Dot. What's the name of the method? By fruit. So I think we have done. If we want to test it, we can just we should pass to okay. Side color is maybe size is small. Color. It's, it's not defined. We have to use string. Always remember that. And if we want to show the functions. Okay, here is right. Yellow is from the color. By fruits is from the console logs here, and then undefined because there's no return values here. Correct. So then our task is to create an inheritance of it. The first thing what we are thinking is also name the function rate to have a constructor apple. And so how we really make connection the apple and the fruit? That's the thing we have to solve. If we use new apple to run, we can also create the two other things, including the prototype and its properties here, right? We call the function fruit inside these functions. So if we call it fruits here, and the property of fruits will come here. The color, this color and this shape will be here. But there's another problem, will be changed in the nested functions here. It will point at something else we don't know. In this case, it will point at the window, or it will point at, right? So it cannot point at the window. It should always point at the instance created by the class. So what we're going to do here is, if we do something like this, then the list, it will not really refer to other things. So this is something important. Then the other thing is that we have to pass two parameters here. The first one is color, and the other one is size. This error actually here, what we pass is the exact parameters rather than the color size. So we should pass something like size. We should pass something like size. We should pass something like then let's say if actually it works well. Round red is something we pass here. Okay. So again, let me emphasize that we really have to use code, because why? Because if there's a nested function in the functions, and if we want to use new apple round here to do it, and then the news values will be changed. Will change to in this case will be the window, so it cannot really have the same point at the instance itself, because if we use new, usually the everything here and the list will directly point at the instance apple one itself. But if it's a nested functions, it cannot really automatically point at it. And then we pass two parameters here, then we get something right. And then let's just try the next one to see if it also has five fruits. It has error because we cannot really regularize these functions. So there's something really wrong with it. We have to deal with it a little more. First, how we can really inherit the one functions. If solve the problem, right? I just repeat, if Apple prototype, it also inherits the by fruits function, which is in the prototype of fruit. Apple prototype inherits fruit prototype, then everything will be done. And there's directly a function in JavaScript to do that. So you know what's that? That is a method in the prototype of object. Object is the function of JavaScript preset function. With this one, we create an object, right? So this one is a constructor or function, and then it has its method here named this becomes the prototype of this. So we can really get by fruit functions. And if we can, of course, we cannot deny that. It means Apple itself will become a function, right? Apple always, another function, or Apple always be something like this, always be these functions to create a new instance, new Apple instance. So cannot be Apple equals to this. It should be something associated with Apple. That's the prototype, because anything on the chain of the prototype can really be inherited from by the instance. So let's see if it works well. Actually, it works well. By fruits, and we have it here and undefined. So another thing is that we just put it into the Google source to figure everything out. If everything works properly. Okay, if we use console.dir.apple, and then what we can see here is, yeah, here is all right. But when it comes to the prototype, that's what we defined. The prototype of fruits become the proto of prototype. Yeah, it's a little bit twisted, just like this. When we get the apple.prototype, right, and then there should be elements inside, and that should be the prototype of fruit. So if we check here, we can see really it's really the prototype of fruits because it has by fruit functions. So earlier we just defined the here the fruit prototype, right? It has these by fruit functions. So this one is right, but the other one is that I think we have erased everything or substitute everything under the prototype of Apple by mesh. So there's a error we can really discover if we really console log Apple prototype constructors. It doesn't really returns back to Apple, point at Apple itself, but this one will point as, let's say, the fruit. That's the result, the fruit itself. Why is it like that? Because if we assign the things here, actually we have just erased original things under the prototype for Apple, and then we just substitute everything by the fruit. So automatically, if we really call the apple.prototype and then constructors, it will have all the things with fruits rather than apple. So if we really successfully create a object, it should really the Apple prototype constructors, it should return back, refer back to the Apple itself. So that's the problem. And to illustrate it better, maybe we just refresh and wait. I just copy from here to here without the next one. Let's see the original prototype of Apple. What does it look like? There's the prototype, am I right? Let's check what's inside. Actually, right, it has a constructor pointed Apple, and it has a object. I think in this one, of course, is point as the object with capital O, that one already. That's the original one. And later we just do something like this. Okay, before I hit the button, I just explain everything, and the prototype will disappear rather than it will be shot by the fruit prototype is what we can see. Everything here will disappear, and then let's just see again. So apple to compare. That's all the things will disappear, and only the things left is this one. This one is different from this one because let's just unfold. That's the object, right, itself, and this one. See, it's apple. It's not really the same thing as this one. So the point is really is we will really erase everything from the prototype of apples because it will be substituted totally by this. But then there's something wrong because the constructor of the apple.prototype should return to apple itself. If it doesn't, we just use object.define properties to add something here. It means that when we call apple.properties.constructors, then the value it will return should be the apple itself rather than the fruits. So that's the that's the trickiest part of today's things. But aside from it, I think everything will work very fine. Let's just try to round, shape round, color red, by fruits because it doesn't return anything. I mean, in these functions, so it should return define. Okay, that's for today's. Now let's have a sum up. We have two ways to extend the class, or we just make the inheritance of the class. The first one is very easy. You can directly use it. The after ES5, we can just use class keywords and extends. It's extends, not extend. The second thing is before ES5 is a little bit complicated and there's some tricky parts we have to modify it here. Of course, we have to know that if we call fruits, all the names functions will be here, but maybe something will be wrong with the point of this because it's another nested functions. So we have to really bind the names to always to, when we use new to the instance, right? And the second thing also very easy to be ignored is if we really use the prototype, here to fruit prototype to really replace everything here, then even the constructor will be missing. So we just to get it back, we just use object dot define properties to really also bind the constructor of apple.prototype to apple itself. So that's the two tricky things. Okay, that's for today.